Greetings, this is Brother Chris Nutter, and I'm going to talk to you for a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the world and some of the things going on just in life and in the earth in general. And I want you to pay attention. I pray that this is going to help. Um, you know, it was about a week ago where I posted a video about how the Lord spoke to me about come and return unto the Lord, and how that he wanted us to come and return and to seek him, and that was his focus, is on seeking him and not on just continuing life as usual, continuing church as usual, going through the form, going through the motions, but instead truly humbling ourselves, realizing that we need God to change what we do. We need God to change us, and to really just put forth that effort in coming back to him and seeking the face of God. And I know maybe when I put out that video, I think there may be some people that are kind of wondering, well, what does it mean to seek the face of God? What does it mean to seek his face? And that's what I want this video to be about tonight. I'm going to walk through some steps of what it means to seek the face of God and how to seek God. Because if we're not seeking God, we're not growing, right? I mean, we have to constantly be seeking God in order to grow. And seeking God means seeking his maturity, seeking his will, seeking his mind, seeking to know him, seeking to grow in relationship with him. It's not just about going through a form. It's not even really about just living a good life. It is about coming to know him in the fullness of how he wants us to know him. And so I'm going to go through some steps, and I pray that it's gonna help you if maybe you are struggling. And really, the steps, they apply to everybody. It doesn't matter your walk with God. It doesn't matter how long you've been seeking the Lord. It doesn't matter how long you've been serving the Lord. Really, these steps can apply at any time in your relationship with God. So again, I'm going to go through them, and I encourage you, pay attention, take notes, listen to it. If it gets your attention, if it's something that you feel, if you hear something helpful, then I encourage you, come back and listen to it again. You don't have to only listen one time. If there is something that has spoken to your soul and it has helped you, then go back, come back, listen to it again, get it in your spirit, let the Lord seal it inside of your mind, inside of your heart. Let it become a part of you. Don't let it be so easily separated from you. As a lot of times life happens, and sometimes life can separate us from the mind of God. It can separate us from what God maybe has showed us or God has dealt with us about, maybe some things the Lord has spoken to us. And we've got to be vigilant. We've got to be fighting for that mind of the Spirit to come and stay in us, and we've got to fight to retain what God has spoken to us. So I'm going to get into these steps, and again, I pray that they will be a strength to you, and they can apply to all parts of your walk with God. So the first thing, and this may sound obvious, all of this may sound obvious, but it's not about whether it sounds obvious. It's about, are we applying ourselves and are we doing it? That's what the Lord is looking for, is are we doing it? So the first step is identify things in your life that you know are wrong, or things that you know displease God. These things are usually going to be pretty obvious. When I think back to when I first came to the Lord, there were several things that I knew that I needed to stop doing, and things that I knew that I needed to start doing. So for me, at the time when I came back to the Lord back in 2009, my life consisted of drinking, partying, foul language, other things, not going to church, not really being in part of church, not tithing, right? I was out doing whatever it was I wanted to do. So when I came back to the Lord, there were things that I knew, first off, that were things that I needed to change, right? I didn't know everything that I needed to change, and God doesn't expect us to know everything that we need to change. Sometimes there's a thought where, well, I'm just going to wait until I get everything figured out, and then I'll start serving God. Well, if that's the case, you'll never get it figured out and you'll never start serving God. So it's all about taking steps and letting Him grow you, letting Him mature you, letting Him teach you. You know, we've got to let Him teach us how to serve Him. And so when I first came to the Lord, the first things I started doing was, one, I stopped drinking. Two, I stopped cussing. And this is not in any particular order, I'm just numbering things. I started tithing. I started attending church. I started praying. I started reading my Bible. Right? All of these were these were actions that I took, right? Because I knew that they were the right things to do. And if I was to go through them in any particular order, I would say the first one is I started going to church, right? I don't think I stopped drinking until after I had been in church for maybe about a month or so. You know, I really didn't give it up until after I'd been there about a month. But I did start tithing the best that I could. You know, I did the best that I could. And that's what God wants. That is what He is looking for you to do the best that you can. So I encourage you, start somewhere. Start attending a church. If you don't have a church, okay, if you don't have a church to attend, then I encourage you, tune into these videos. I'm going to be doing my best to be more consistent with them. You know, had other obligations that prevented me from being consistent, but now I'm doing my best to be consistent with them. And go back and listen to the other videos that have been posted. There is solid instruction and teaching. There are things that will help you in your relationship with God. So I want to encourage you, find somewhere that is feeding your soul. Don't just settle for anything. If it doesn't seem right or it doesn't feel like it's doing what it needs to do, then don't settle there. Don't settle for anything in your relationship with God, but be sure you are finding the truth and finding the best thing that is helping you. So again, find those things that you know, those things that are easy, those things that are obvious, that you're like, you know what, this is not right. Just start there. Just start there. Doesn't matter if it's one or if it's two. Just start with that. Second thing, set a dedicated time to pray by yourself. This is probably one of the most important things that you can do in your relationship with God. This should not be a time where you're rushed. It should not be a time where you're really around other people. But instead, this should be a time where you are able to devote yourself and your attention to talking to the Lord. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Prayer is not complicated. I mean, it's really not complicated. And the Lord will teach you how to pray. If you don't know how to pray, I promise you the Lord will teach you. I remember when I came to the Lord again back in 2009, the church that I was attending, the instruction that church had was to arrive to service 30 minutes ahead of time and to spend that 30 minutes in prayer. And so I remember I started applying myself to do that. And so I started, showing up early and praying. And, I probably, doing the best I could, probably prayed about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'd get up and I'd go and sit in a chair in the congregation and wait for service to start. And, one day, one service, the preacher was up and they were exhorting and they weren't directing it at me, but they were being led by the Spirit. And what they said was, you don't need to be getting up and getting out of prayer until prayer is finished. You need to be getting in prayer with the body and fighting to find the mind of God. Because that really, that was the purpose of that prayer, was to get everybody together, get everybody to focus on the Lord in prayer and pull for God to do what He wanted to do in that service, and not worry about, what was going on in life, but to focus on the Lord. And, so they instructed that. And so I think it was the very next service, I showed up for prayer. I got down on my knees, and I made it about 10 or 15 minutes again. And when that happened, I said, Lord, I don't know how to pray. God, I don't know how to pray more than this 10 or 15 minutes. And when I said that, when I said that and I asked the Lord to teach me to pray, I felt the Spirit of God come over me, and I began to just cry and just weep before the Lord. And He began from that point to teach me how to pray. So if God can teach me how to pray, he can teach anybody how to pray. So take that time, set a dedicated time to pray by yourself. That is going to be the most important thing. Pray by yourself. Pray by yourself. And if you have a family, have that time of prayer with your family. Do your best. It's not easy. I understand. I have a family, and life is not always easy. It's not going to be convenient. The devil's going to do everything he can to make prayer inconvenient to you. He will do everything he can to make prayer inconvenient. He will make you have a bad day, and he'll make it where you feel like you don't want to pray, and he'll make it inconvenient that way. And then he'll also give you so much going on in the natural that you don't have time, right? Or you don't feel like you have time, and he makes it very inconvenient. Maybe you got to stay up later by yourself. Maybe you got to get up earlier, and it's just not convenient to you. That's the enemy's purpose, is to keep you from growing in a relationship with God, because he knows that if you get in a relationship with God and God begins changing you, then you are a threat to him, and you have the ability to reach anybody in this world. So again, set that dedicated time to pray. Third thing, set a dedicated time to read the Word, to read the Bible. This, ideally, the easiest thing to do is set this up right after your time of prayer, right? As soon as you get done praying, start reading the Bible. Again, I'll go back to my experience. When I first came to the Lord, what I did was I would pray, and again, I struggled praying 30 minutes. I really did. Now sometimes that seems like not enough time, but I really struggled with praying for 30 minutes. And so what I did was I would set an alarm on my phone, and man, I did my best. I did my best to pray those 30 minutes. And then after I got done praying those 30 minutes, I would get up and I would read 2 chapters in the New Testament. I would advise, if you're not actively reading your Bible, or if you've not read the Bible in a long time, or if you've not read the Bible ever, I encourage you to start in the New Testament. Start in the book of Matthew and start reading. And just start making a decision, make a dedication, right? That's what this is all about, is making a dedication unto the Lord. It's not about being perfect. It's not about getting it right. It's not about figuring everything out. But what it is about committing unto the Lord and doing your best to serve him and to please him. So again, set that dedicated time. You shouldn't be distracted. I encourage you, do not use your phone. Okay, if you can use your phone if you need to. Maybe that's the only Bible that you have access to is on your phone, and that's fine. I understand that. But a lot of times what can happen is when you use your phone, you're too easily distracted. So get a Bible. Get a Bible, a hard, a literal text Bible, and use that instead of an electronic device. Fourth thing, follow the Lord's instructions. So this is the one that I think is probably one of, again, it's all of these steps are critical, but this one I think is really important. A lot of times when we go to prayer, and this may not happen to you, the first time you go to prayer, it may not happen to you the first 30 times you go to prayer. But there will be times where the Lord will speak to you, or he will put something in your heart, right? He will give you a thought of something that you need to do or something that you need to stop doing. A lot of times you'll hear me use the phrase that the Lord is dealing with me, or that the Lord showed me something. And when I use those phrases, what I'm saying is that when I was in prayer or reading, that the Lord showed me something. There was something that stood out to me. And maybe that'll be what happens to you, is maybe while you're reading, there will be something that stood out to you. Maybe while you're in prayer, the Lord will bring a specific situation to your mind. Follow his instructions. It could be as simple as apologizing to somebody that you've wronged. It could be, start paying your tithes. It could be a multitude of things. It could be, hey, you need to stop doing this because it's making you too tired. You need to stop staying up so late at night. It's making you too tired to be able to get up and pray. I mean, all of these things, right? There's so many things. You're not going to predict them, and I'm not encouraging you to try to predict them. But what I'm saying is that when this instruction comes, follow it. Do it. It's just the Lord teaching you and showing you things. I know that was one for me. I'll go back to drinking. I think the first thing that I did is, like I said, I started going to church. I started, some of the instruction I got was going to prayer 30 minutes before service, right? I followed that instruction. That came through a minister, right? That didn't come from the Lord directly to me, but that came through a minister. So I started applying myself to that instruction, following the instruction that minister gave me. I started attending the church, started praying, had my own dedicated time of prayer, my own dedicated time of reading. Then I also made the effort to stop cussing, because at that time that was very prominent in my life, because that was the lifestyle I had lived. It took me several months to break that habit. And then, the next thing I think the Lord probably broke off of me was drinking. And that was one that had a really strong hold on me. But I remember I was actually on my way, not to get into all the details, but I was on my way to a party for a friend, and I was talking to somebody, and they asked me, they said, well, how about you don't drink? And I said, well, I guess I could do that. And so I was sitting there at a traffic light, and I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in my hometown. I was sitting at a traffic light getting ready to make a turn, and I was on the phone with this person. And as I was sitting there, I just remember telling the Lord, I said, Lord, you have called me to preach this gospel. That is my purpose in life. And I said, and I know, as much as I have tried to hold on to being able to drink and think that I can do this, I know that there is no way I can preach this gospel and drink the way that I do and live the life the way that I do. I said, it's just not possible. And I said, so Lord, right now I'm going to give it up to you. And from then on, that was the Lord dealing with me. He was giving me that instruction. Yes, somebody prompted the question, and made me think about it, made me contemplate about it. But it was the Lord showing me that it was time to stop. He's the one that ultimately dealt with me about it. He's the one. I made the decision because I felt like it was right in His eyes. And that is what we must do, is always do what's right in His eyes. Make your decisions to do what is right in the Lord's eyes. So let's be sure to follow His instruction. The last thing, stay consistent. Consistency is key. If there's anything that is key in your relationship with God, it is consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you've had the worst day of your life. I don't care if you have messed up and broken every commitment you've ever made to the Lord. I don't care if you've done your very best and you still fell flat on your face. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what you've done. Stay consistent. Get into your dedications with God. Get into the Word of God. Get into prayer. Man, when you mess up, that is the first thing you need to do, is get into prayer and go to war. Man, get into prayer and fight for your relationship with God. The enemy's purpose, his desire, is to destroy you. He wants to keep you from having a relationship with God. He wants to keep you bound. Whatever it is that you can't get victory over, or that you are struggling with, he wants to keep you bound. He wants to convince you that there's no hope for you. But I can promise you, there is hope for all people, and through the blood of Jesus Christ. There is hope for all people in Jesus. And it doesn't matter what you're facing. It doesn't matter what you are dealing with. It doesn't matter what struggles or bondages are in your life. Jesus Christ will deliver you if you hold on to Him. If you will call unto His name, He will deliver you. It may take 3 months. It may take a year. It may take a week. It may take one day. He can do it. He can do it in a split second. He can break that bondage. That thing can seem so powerful and so strong, and it can rule over you and seem like it has your number. But then at any moment, the Spirit of God can break that bondage and give you complete and total victory. So hold on to Jesus. Hold on to His Word. Stay consistent. Be sure you keep in a dedication of prayer. Stay in a dedication of reading the Word. When the Lord gives you instruction, follow it. If there's something in your life that you know is wrong, get rid of it and fight to stay consistent. Those are the steps. Those are the 5 steps of really seeking God. Again, this is not complicated. It's not hard, but the warfare that the enemy brings is to try to mess you up in one of these areas. He's going to try to mess you up in one of these 5 areas. He's going to try to convince you that you don't need to change. He's going to convince you you don't need to pray. He's going to convince you you don't need to read. He's going to convince you that you can do what you want and not follow the Lord's instructions, and he will try to convince you that if you miss a day here or miss a day there, then it's fine. But I'm telling you, I have lived it. I'm speaking from experience. Stay consistent in your relationship with God, and God will bring forth great deliverance in your life. May God bless.